In many systems, and I think just society overall, Black and brown young men and women, there's this adultification that happens and almost this dehumanization where it's just these things happen, but you have to just pick up and just keep going. And they're kids. There's a need to be compassionate and to really allow them space to feel safe, but also understanding it may take them a while, especially with the system like ours, to open up and hear from them what it is that they need.
Back when I was in internship, I was working in a city where only 3% of the population identified as white. I remember working with this remarkably sweet and smart little boy. He was African American, and he put his arm next to mine and he said, "Dr. Tracy, I wish I could scrape off my skin and have your color underneath." I had no idea what to do with that. I told him how beautiful he was and that I thought he was an incredible person. Those are the instances that will continue to come up. We have to get more comfortable talking about race. He deserved a lot more than to be told he was beautiful in that moment.
We ask about what is your gender, what is your sexual orientation, tell me about your friends. Why wouldn't we ask about an experience of race and who you are? If you don't, you're either consciously or unconsciously denying a part of them that gets cut off in the therapeutic process. Usually I meet with the family first if it's a younger child, and I would absolutely ask about, do you talk about race in your family? What are those conversations like? How does your child understand or engage or experience their life in the world around them?
Bringing up your own race can be a very effective way of opening up the topic. Someone could say, well, I'm not Black, so I couldn't do that. That's why you ought to do it.
The trauma that our young people experience doesn't always present as, oh, I need help. There's young people who we might miss entirely. Great students who present very well, extremely articulate students with great grades, and they're experiencing their trauma internally. Because they're not misbehaving, aren't getting to their services either.
Jade, the film, is a quick snapshot in Jade's life, and what we're seeing is the accumulation of her at 17-ish years old, reacting to what has been going on her whole life. What can be perceived as minor experiences accumulate on top of each other. And it is not just about that single thing, but the holistic lived experience.
Sometimes in a lot of systems, we put kids, communities into these buckets of deserving and non-deserving. Well, they're a good kid, so I want them to be able to get this menu of services. This is a bad kid, a kid who's maybe been resistant, and just not really understanding and maybe leaning in and asking them why. Sometimes typical teenage behavior that you may see happen in a school can be criminalized in an instant.
When we talk specifically about Black people, a lot of the behaviors are miscoined as aggressive when actually they're grounded in real lived experiences of trauma. We know that the symptoms of trauma include hypervigilance, hyperarousal. For psychologists and for social workers, then that only becomes further grounds for their pathology.
One of the things that we try to start with everybody is the message that it's not you. There's nothing wrong with the way you're responding to things. Like, it makes sense. It's normal. That's not to say it's not difficult or distressing, but that you're not crazy. Some of that is just about validating people's experience, which is to say, like, this is how people are wired, and this is why people react the way they react. And you're holding yourself to a standard, and the rest of society is holding you to a standard of culpability that is applied to adults, and that's not fair.
Issues of oppression, they're in the workplace, they're in the classroom, they're in clinical settings, they're in the consultation room. The difference is whether or not we're addressing them, talking about them, naming them, and trying to find ways to dismantle its impact on the lives of people.
Until we start thinking about race and the pressures that it brings for even our smallest children on a day-to-day basis, until we start to try and put ourselves in that space and open up opportunities for those conversations, then we're just missing a huge piece of the pie. So we may be doing something good in therapy, but we might be missing the boat.